Thanks for joining us again. This is the Word for the Valley podcast. And we ended part 1 with a deeply painful and unjust death of John the Baptist. His disciples carried his body away, and the news of John's death reaches Jesus. And it's at that moment, out of grief and loss and the heaviness of injustice, that the next scene unfolds. Instead of turning inward or withdrawing completely, Jesus responds in a way that reveals his compassion, his heart, and his mission more clearly than ever. Let's pick back up with Pastor Mike at verse 13.
Now, moving into this next scene, in chapter 14, verse 13, it says, when Jesus heard it. This becomes imperative that we realize that this next scene of the feeding of the 5,000 comes on the heels of Jesus hearing about his predecessor, the man who led out his ministry, the man who got him started in his ministry, and a cousin, and another noble, righteous person in Israel dying. What kind of impact would this have on Jesus? Right? What kind of impact would this have on Jesus? A couple years ago, one of my kind of mentors, disciplers, one of my main disciplers actually passed away. He was in ministry, very busy time in his ministry, and it ended up sleep apnea, died in his sleep, went to sleep, didn't wake up the next morning, and was gone. He was gone. And one day, busy, full, they're planning his wife's mother's funeral at the time. So his wife had to then plan her mom's funeral and then do her husband's funeral in the same week. And just like, how does that happen? I still think, every now and then, I should send him a text. Right? Because there are a few people in life, right, like I like to fall back to. I have a question about this. I wonder about ministry. Scott and I would get together. We would argue about everything, right? Because he did ministry a very different way, the wrong way, right? And I did ministry this way, and we worked together really well for a good long season. But he would come at it from this side, which I thought was wrong, and I would come at it from this side, which he kind of thought might have been right, but just not as efficient as his way, kind of thing. That's kind of how we would argue. And we would argue about it over, the last time we were together was Perkins, and we were there an hour and a half, and we argued about everything, right? In brotherly banter, just the way we could do it. And then prayed with one another, hugged one another, loved one another on the way out the door, and agreed to do it again in a couple months. And then never happened. Didn't happen. Couldn't have happened. Right? I still feel that loss. I still miss him. Right? I still feel that. Years later, at a much greater distance, less significant for me than it would even be for Jesus. What's he dealing with right now? Now, on the heels of it, something else is happening. The other Gospels tell us that the other disciples who had been sent out on a missionary journey right before this news came to Jesus came back at the same time. The other disciples come back and they are like giddy with their first ministry venture that seemed to go somewhat well. We got stories, Jesus, isn't this great? God did this, and then he did this, and we trusted God for this. And they just come back all like hyped up, amped up from their first missionary, kind of like their short-term missionary people that came back and they were just like, kind of thing. And you're like, just do life for a little while, chill out, kind of thing. And but they're all kind of like this. Jesus is dealing with all this grief. He's got all this mixture of emotion that's going on in his heart. So he says to his disciples, listen, let's get away to a deserted place. And Mark says, and rest a while. Let's rest a while. Jesus is overloaded. He's underwater. Remember the last time you were emotionally swamped? You felt like you were barely breathing. You didn't even know how to survive. I've said at times in my life, you kind of go underwater and you bob around there a little bit. There are other times, listen, you get stuck underwater and you are breathing through a straw. And you just got to calm it down and settle it down and breathe smoothly, breathe calmly, and just slow everything down. Because life is going to kill you if you're not careful. you're going to end up in a psych ward. You just got to slow down. Jesus is taking this away now. And it leads us to the scene that we see next. When Jesus heard it in verse 13, he departed from there by boat to a deserted place. Now it says by himself. It's by himself with his 12 disciples. But when the multitudes heard it, they followed him on foot from the cities. So he's going from one side, the kind of the north western side of the Sea of Galilee, and he's moving towards the eastern side of the Sea of Galilee. The Sea of Galilee is not very big, and when a boat goes out there with a couple men on it, especially somebody of the notoriety of Jesus, people on the shoreline can see what's happening, and word goes back into the towns, right? Caesarea and all of those towns hear that Jesus is moving shop. He's going over here for the day, right? And the people who are accustomed to hearing Jesus, watching him teach, and doing all of these miracles, they are excited to follow him pretty much anywhere he goes at this point in time. His notoriety is in some ways, at a peak at this time in his ministry. So they follow him. Multitudes heard it. They followed him on foot from the cities. Now, multitudes, by the way, tells us in verse 21, it's 5,000 men. They didn't count the women and the children. We're talking 7,000, 10,000. 12,000, 15,000, it could be 15,000 people meet him on the other side of the shore when the boat hits the deck or the boat hits the sand. Deserted place. Rest a while, right? If I were Jesus, I'd build myself a spaceship. I'm just going to go to the moon for a couple of days or something. Get out of Dodge. Anywhere here around this, it's just going to be overwhelming. It says in verse 14, when Jesus went out, he saw a great multitude, look, and he was moved with compassion for them and healed their sick. When he arrives on that shore, it's remarkable again. I think we just have to sit with this and think about this for yourself for a second. He arrives on that shore. He sees all of these people. Not only all these people, he sees all these people with apparent needs, right? They have wheeled over there anybody who's got any type of, I got a bump over here, right? My knee doesn't feel quite right. I think I broke my arm. I mean, they've hauled the whole hospital to the side of the shore to meet Jesus. Not only is it 15,000 people that are there for some party, it's 15,000 people who are looking to get something from Jesus. They need stuff. They came here for a reason. When Jesus recognizes it, it says that he was moved with compassion. So literally, he was moved in the bowels. The ancient societies here, Hebrews in particular, the Jewish people, they didn't think the heart was the seat of emotions. That's a Greek thing, a Western thing, right? They thought the seat of emotions were the bowels, right? So their Valentine's Day cards were, I love you with all my guts, right? Now you think, well, that's weird. Listen, is it any better to say I love you with all my heart? Oh, that's dumb. Oh, I love you with all my heart. A heart, that's not how a heart is shaped. Okay? You recognize that. I love you with all my heart. That's different. Still gross, right? But again, they've viewed it differently here. But Jesus, he's moved in his guts. He's moved in the deepest part of who he is. He's moved for these people with compassion and began then to heal the sick. It's almost as if he can't help but help. He can't help but serve. And the people, apparently, they knew that. That's probably why they came. They knew he would do good stuff, right? They just make a 3 or 4 mile walk around the sea. They're going to meet Jesus and good stuff is going to happen. He healed their sick. Mark chapter 6 then said, he took the remainder of the day to teach them. So he started out by healing the sick. When everybody's kind of good with all that, kind of sitting down, calming down from those great things, they sit down. Jesus just starts talking, starts teaching, right? He ends up teaching to the place where it's all day long. It says here in verse 15, when it was evening, he teaches for hours on end. The people just sit, hang out. It would be fun to watch him here, to listen to him. After all the things he has just done, all the healings he's just performed. Hey guys, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the birds. Let's talk about the sower. Let's talk about the seed. Let's talk about, and it just goes on, right? The righteousness of Rome, or unrighteousness of Rome, right? The law, grace, substitutionary atonement, sacrifice of animals. Like, he would just go on teaching all day long. Now, the people hadn't planned to be there for an all-day event. They had apparently planned to come, get healed. Maybe Jesus would move on and they would go home. So the thing has turned into a much longer event than what they were anticipating, and obviously longer than even what the disciples were anticipating. It says, when it was evening in verse 15, his disciples came to him saying, this is a deserted place, and the hour is already late. Send the multitudes away that they may go into the villages and buy themselves food. Now listen, it sounds a lot worse than what it is. I underlined in my Bible in verse 15, send the multitudes away, right? Out of that sentence. That sounds really mean, right? Okay, ministry is over. We're tired. Make them go home. Like, I'm done. It's 9:30 on a Wednesday night. I am toast. Go away. Or shutting the doors, right? I've heard stories of people in churches, and when the pastor gets this like 9 o'clock or an hour after service, starts going around, and you all need to find some other place to gather, right? You're annoying me. Go away. You're kind of what I've got other things to do kind of thing. Just trying to button everything up and move on with the thing. And sometimes you're not realizing like sometimes the greatest ministry can happen in those late hours. Send the multitudes away. It's not just they're tired of the people. There's also like a consideration for the people. I think it says in the book of John, if they make this journey too late in the day without having food in their bodies over the last 4 or 5 hours, they might faint along the way. If they don't have enough hydration, enough water, they might pass out. Some of these older people that came to be healed, they might not even make it home. So the disciples, part of this is out of consideration. The other part of it is obviously the needs of the people are overwhelming them, right? So the way they think that this ought to be solved is just call an end to the thing and let's go home. Listen, after all, Jesus has been through in this day. Don't you think he'd be looking for every opportunity to end it as fast as he could? You're right, this is a good stopping point. I think this is, we'll call it a day. Good, that's good, right? Just go home. No. He sees another opportunity, right? And it's not just for the people, it's also for his disciples. Because there's something in this process they do not yet get, right? They don't get it. Send the multitudes away that we may go, or that they may go in the villages and buy themselves food. Now, verse 16, Jesus said to them, they do not need to go away. There's another option. I love and hate how Jesus oftentimes thinks of options that I never thought of when I was thinking about all my options, right? It's either A or B. And he's like, no, it's like 176. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, where is that even? I wasn't even on the radar. What do you mean that? What are you talking about? No, why don't we just do it this way? But it's either A or B. It's either this or that, right? These are the only two options I see. These are only two. No, there's another way, right? And we like to limit God in these kinds of things. No, there's another way to feed these people. He said they don't need to go away. He says instead, you give them something to eat. You give them something to eat. And the disciples look around at each other like, you got any bread? You got any fishes over there? Like, no, man, I ate those things long ago, right? We came back from a wrestling tournament yesterday, and another long week and a long weekend wrestling. And the question always at the end of a tournament is, are we going to stop on the way home? Like, kiddo, you haven't been wrestling for 6 hours. You got knocked out of the tournament like yesterday. You had all day to eat. What were you doing? What? Are we going to stop to eat? Yeah, you. We're going to stop and eat you. What are you talking about? Come on, kind of thing, right? It's amazing how people who are so dependent on food don't plan to eat food. You think there'd be some foresight and planning, right? I didn't like what they were making down there. It's the same thing at Sheetz. Knock it off. This is so dumb, right? Plus now I'm going to lose 30 minutes in a Sheetz parking lot that I could have used in a better way at home in my recliner kind of thing. But this is annoying, right? Nobody thought of food? Come on. Nobody thought of food. You give them something to eat, we don't got nothing. We were all out. I ate my lunch, at lunchtime when lunch should have been eaten. Now it's past dinner, right? We're going to extend into the evening. We're all out. And they said in verse 17, now, this is Andrew. He had gone hunting. After they realized they didn't have any food, he had gone hunting through the crowd. He had found a little boy who apparently here had 5 loaves and 2 fish. Now listen, why does a little boy have 5 loaves and 2 fish yet in his sack lunch that he brought there on the spur of the moment? Why is it still there? Because nobody knew it was there. Even the little boy himself forgot it was there, right? He probably got out playing, out running around. You know how little boys are, little kids are. Like, oh, you need to sit and eat. They're like, I don't want to eat. Get a little older, you want to eat all the time. Kind of thing. I have to tell myself to stop eating, right? You kind of thing. Like, it's like telling a little kid that they need a nap. I don't want a nap. Well, then let's trade places. You do my work and I'll take a nap, kind of thing. I want naps all the time. I don't want to nap. I don't want to eat, right? The kid had forgotten his lunch. He had probably even forgotten that mom sent it with him. He didn't pack that lunch himself. You know that. He ends up with a sack somewhere. Andrew's hunting around. Hey, anybody got any food? Anybody got any food? Anybody got any food? He looks at this little, what's that on the ground? That little boy's like, oh, it's mine. What's in it? Oh, 5 loaves and 2 fish. Food? He's like, give that to me quick. Kind of thing. Because if everybody in the crowd knows I got 5 loaves and 2 fish, they're going to eat us to eat that. And so we're going to hustle this off as quickly as possible. Give the football to me. We're not over here. Right? 5 loaves and 2 fish. The disciples say to Jesus in John chapter 6, verse 9, but what are these among so many? It's a great question. What are these among so many? It's only 5 loaves and 2 fish. And Jesus says in verse 18, he said, bring them here to me, which is the secret to all of these miracles, is that they first have to be placed in Jesus' hands so that he can do with them as he wants to for the greater glory and benefit, greater glory of God and the greater benefit of the people that he's serving. Bring them here to me. Well, then in verse 19, so Andrew hands over the food to Jesus. Then Jesus commanded the multitudes to sit down on the grass, and he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven. So he tells the disciples, Mark says, divide all of the people up into groups of 50s and 100s. So they segment it would be easier to serve that way. It creates aisles in the grass. Everybody's kind of got their designated place. You probably have to make sure all of the kids are with their parents, kind of thing, because you don't want mealtime to go haywire, go crazy. Much easier to serve this way. So he sits them all down. Mark says the grass is green. Right? And then everything's all calm. Jesus is probably there in the crowd standing. It says that he took the 5 loaves and 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he blessed them. Now, this has always been so much fun, right? God is great. God is good. Let us thank him for the food. By his hands we all are fed, right? Give us, Lord, our daily bread. In Jesus' name? No, wait, in my name? Amen. And the people are looking at him like, what? We're all going to watch Jesus eat. Great, right? How much fun is this? I'm hungry, right? He said grace. And then it says that he broke the bread and the fish. He starts to break them up into pieces. Now, the idea is that as he broke, it's continually and repetitively, he broke and kept breaking. Now, if you do that with normal bread, you end up with crumbs, right? He would break, they would reconstitute into whole loaves, and then he would re-break them again. break and re-break and re-break and re-break and re-break again, and he would fill a basket, and then he would send one of his disciples through with the loaves and the fish. You go feed that section. You got section 1A, right? You got section 1B. You got section, like he would go, you got this. Okay, now you, Andrew, now Peter, why don't you go over there? And he would send the disciples out with these baskets of food, and they would start to serve the people in the field. It says that he blessed, he broke, and then he gave the loaves to the disciples, and the disciples gave to the multitudes. Now, do not miss the fact, verse 16, when he said to them, you give them something to eat, that they, in fact, at the end of the story, give the people something to eat. He was right. They were going to feed the people. They just didn't realize they weren't the source. They were only the distributors, right? I want to make all kinds of jokes about the supply chain here, but I'll refrain, right? No supply chain issues here. Jesus, disciples, people, right? Have a meal. All good. All good. The disciples gave to the multitudes. Verse 20, so they, the multitudes, all ate and were filled, is literally glutted, right? You would think that people would like be careful on this day. I don't want to eat. I want to make sure that my kids have enough. I want to make sure they have enough. You know, did section 10C get enough kind of yet? Like, I want to make sure everybody's... No, just eat until you can't eat anymore, right? And we'll make sure that everybody else gets to eat until they can't eat anymore. Just, it's okay. And they were glutted, right? Thanksgiving, you got your sweatpants on, right? You're sweating, the meat sweats. You can't breathe, right? Right? It's not tryptophan or whatever that is they say in Turkey. It's just you overate and your body, all the blood in your body is in your stomach right now. And so you got no energy to move anywhere else, and you should just lay down for a little while and not die. That's kind of the thing. Just get over that. Kind of, you know, like it's like the python that swallowed the pig. It just needs a little bit of time to work its way through the system, kind of thing. Just got to give it a little time. And they are all glutted. Now it says the disciples, look, took up 12 baskets full of the fragments that remain. 12 baskets. Why 12? How many disciples are there? Each disciple walks away with his own basket. 12 baskets. Right? It says in verse 21, those who had eaten were about 5,000 men, besides women and children. Now, just a couple lessons here, I think, to point out before we wrap up. One is Jesus' supply is plenty ample. He doesn't run out. He's got an unlimited source, right? We function as human beings. We function with limitations. I only have so much time. I only have so much energy. I only have so much money. Those limitations are necessary for us because the only way to develop priorities is to have a limitation. If you don't have any limitations, you don't need priorities. You can throw infinite amount of time to anything, right? But because we're limited, we have to develop priorities. We have to develop things of significance, tiers of significance in our lives to put the greater significance to the more important things. That's because we have limitations. We're not infinite. We're very much finite. Jesus, though, because his infinite source never gets misused. He will never do something infinitely bad. His infinite source is always working for the benefit of those who love him, who are called according to his name. His benefit works for us. That he can amply supply whatever need there may be. His source is not limited. Even when maybe he himself is. Meaning, he has taken some hits this day. Emotionally. Physically, maybe even, right? This is not an easy day for Jesus. But his supply continues. First, to feed the people, and then as a result of that, then the disciples get fed. Here's the second lesson, right? When will you be filled? Oh, I need to make sure I have enough for me. I need to make sure I have me time. I'm going to say this nicer. I got fired up there just for a second. Did you see that? vehemently opposed. Same thing. To the over preoccupation with the self space that people feel they need to build into their lives for their own selfishness. You don't hear it as much anymore as you did maybe 10 or 15 years ago. People say, well, Jesus said love your neighbor as yourself, and I don't really love myself, right? Now listen, love your neighbor as yourself presumes that you already love yourself. If he meant, hey, learn to love yourself so you can love your neighbor, he would have said it that way, right? He said, love your neighbor as yourself because you're already preoccupied with yourself, and I can tell it because you say, I need this for me, right? There's a commercial, I need me time. Julie just mutes it or turns it or whatever, or goes, oh, kind of things. Physical, visceral reaction from Julie, which is pretty rare over anything on the television. It's, oh, this is so dumb. Honey, I know. We agree here. It's just not good. It's a commercial. It's dumb. We get it, right? I need me time, right? Kind of thing. You will get me time when your life is properly ordered with the Lord. And when your life is properly ordered with the Lord, you will serve others first. And as a result of serving others first, He will make sure that you get filled up in the end. You will end up more filled. When you're properly serving others as the Lord wants you to, you will end up with more in the end than you did in the beginning. It feels contradictive to us. It feels kind of instinctual, right? I need to take care of me. I need to take care of me. I need to take care of me. No, what you need to do is you need to spend some time with Jesus and do what He says. Well, I don't know. I don't have anything left. I feel so empty. I feel so dry. I feel like I don't have anything left. You don't. Spend some time with Jesus. Do what He says. And you find you get your attention where it ought to be. You get your life where it needs to be, where He wants it to be. That you'll end up with way more than you could have ever gotten if you sat there and pouted and demanded that God give you stuff so that you're happier. Because you will never get it that way. You'll never get it that way. Following Jesus, serving the people as He instructs. Now, the third and final thought here is just this. As Jesus sits the crowd down, 10,000, 15,000 people, with those loaves and fish in His hands, what kind of smile do you think He had on His face when He said grace? This is going to blow their minds. In some ways, Jesus relishes the places in our lives where we don't have anything else to give. For some reason or another, it takes us a little time sometimes to get there. Right? Every now and then you'll hear somebody say, I got this. Oh, do you? I'll watch this collapse and burn until you realize you don't. That the only way to got this is just to walk in obedience. Because we don't got this. Jesus loves to get us to the place where you can't figure it out, right? Philip was the human calculator here, by the way, when they said, hey, feed the people. He's like, oh, that's going to be 8 months of my salary. Or yours, or somebody's got to pay 8 months of salary. Like, he's the human calculator. She's like, okay, go figure out all your numbers. And you go figure out what you can't do. You figure out how stuck you are. You figure out what you don't know. Go ahead, just go do that. That's fine. There's nothing wrong in it, right? Some people, that's immediately what they do, right? Human calculators. Okay, I got a problem. Just calculate it out. We are negative 8,000. We are negative 10,000. We are negative. And they good. Then take the calculator and hand it to Jesus. And then say, yo, Jesus, we're negative 8,000. We're in a spot. Not even out of disobedience. This is exactly where you want us to be. This is what you going to do here? And then watch Him smile. And say grace. And then break it before he gives it back to you, so you can distribute it the way it needs to go. Because I'm guessing, we don't know it from the text, but I'm just guessing. And when they sat down, he's the only one standing. And he was not thinking about John the Baptist. He was not thinking about his heart day. He was not thinking about the great need, or I hope God doesn't, I hope, Father, you got to step up here. You're like worried or biting his fingernails. I don't know. It was all smiles. This is going to be awesome. And every single gospel is going to have to write this down, which is one of the only miracles in all of Jesus' life that get in all 4 gospels. Because it so stuns all of them, right? Do you want to see Jesus smile? Some of us would rather see miracles. I'd rather see him smile. The food is schmood, right? The next day, they're going to be looking for more food, right? Food, it's another meal, right? But that little knowing glint in his eye when he's like, watch this. Guys, watch this. Would have been worth the price of admission, right? Do you want to see those? Do you want to experience those little senses of his pleasure, of his joy, of his smile? You want to have a moment like that, a time like that? You want to have that kind of become a reality in your life? Let him take you where you don't have anything left to give. Let him take you there, right? Jesus orchestrated this event. He took the disciples there. Let him take you there, and then give him whatever he asks for. And then stand back and watch, right? If you would, let's stand. Let's pray.
As Jesus held those loaves and fish in his hands, facing a crowd of thousands, he knew what was coming. He knew this moment would reveal his heart and his power in a way no one expected. And often, it's the same for us. Jesus meets us in places where we have nothing left to give, where our resources run out and our strength fails. Those moments aren't meant to break us, but to show us his joy and his sufficiency and his faithfulness. And sometimes God does the most powerful things when we finally reach the end of ourselves. All right, thanks for joining us again. This is the Word for the Valley podcast. So long, everyone.